Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors? He reportedly has some interest in doing so. The Warriors apparently are thinking some Brookyln Nets players, a trio of them, could help them out. But why the trade that may make the most sense is the one that no one is talking about except for Locked On Warriors. We talked about it in the past. On today's show,
you are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, what's the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for hanging out with us always. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. Also covered the team in their championship run in 21-22 for CBS News Bay Area. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. We also stream live after the games on YouTube. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, Charlie Walter here, my co-host today, Matt Kolsky, formerly at 95.7 The Game, sporting the fresh new dew. Blue, baby. Blue for the Dubs. We like that.
Let's go.
They're about to go on a huge run, my friend. He worked for 95.7 The Game, as I mentioned, also KNBR. You can still hear him on the airways for KNBR from time to time. On today's show, we're getting into smoke season. A couple of reports are out that players are available and the Warriors are interested. A couple names I'll give you that I think make sense, a few that don't make sense. We'll see if our opinions overlap here or if they are just completely on the opposite side of the spectrum. Also, we'll get you ready for Rockets Warriors. That's a Wednesday game in the quarterfinal of the NBA Cup, and we're talking good vibes. So that's where we will start with the Golden State Warriors vibing right now. And you say, Chuck, how are the Dubs vibing? They're 2-6 over their last 8. Look at the schedule. They lost to the Spurs. They lost to the Nets. I will remind you that both those games, it wasn't consistently bad. Like, it was fourth quarter collapses. Aside from that, the Warriors put together some strong minutes at times over the course of those two games. Then they lost to the Thunder. Looked pretty good despite missing Steph Curry. Suns was a matter of just too little too late after a horrid first half. Nuggets, they just couldn't close the job on the road. That's a tough game. Then they beat the Rockets without Steph Curry in a game that they just out-physicaled Houston, which is what Houston does. Also, the Rockets couldn't hit a shot. That doesn't help. And then the Wolves in a back-to-back baseball series, they lose the first one by a bunch. The second one, it was a gritty win. So that's where we start. It's the lasting images of that game against Minnesota where Steph Curry came up, set the screen on Rudy Gobert. Draymond Green hammers it home, is looking for his friend Rudy as he throws up a night-night, sprinting down the floor with his hands in night-night position the entire time, and Steph Curry just going absolutely wild. He talked about it in the post-game presser, man. That's a vibe changer right there. Where do we stand in terms of vibes, in your opinion?
I think looking at the schedule isn't the best way to defend it, but I actually agree with you. I think it's pretty good.
It's better.
I think, yeah, these last 3 games, even though the middle one was a loss, they feel like they're pushing in the right direction. And, you know, whether or not you super care about the NBA Cup, that is like something that they have achieved in a positive direction so far that they're feeling good about heading into another game with a Rockets team that they just beat without Steph Curry. So probably feeling like it's a gettable game if Steph Curry's there or not. But I do think he'll be there. So yes, there's been a downturn in the win-loss record over the last, whatever it is, 7 games maybe. I think the attitude around the team right now reflects that they feel like they've come out of it in the last 3 games. And, you know, basically the NBA Cup is their opportunity to prove that they've come out of it.
No doubt about it, man. Warriors 5th in the West right now. Vibes just have been a clear part of the season. I mean, starting back in Hawaii, it was a word, not words. I guess good
word.
Vibes. Words. Good vibes. Always. Good vibes only. They were brought up this offseason. I think it's clear, though, with the Warriors sitting at 5th in the West, that they could just use another guy. Who that guy is, whether it's a a scoring guard, whether it's someone that gives you a little bit of length that can knock down threes a la Cam Johnson, or whether it's, someone that can play down low and give you, whether it's a traditional burly five or whether it's a stretch five, it's up for debate. Like, there's a lot of different names that have been floated around. Who could you use? Who could you not use? Let's talk about this. Best way to do it right now is to find a team that either wants draft capital because you have plenty of it, or find a team that would like expiring contracts because they're nowhere in contention and they locked up a player for just a little too long that they don't want to pay anymore. They'll take your expiring contracts off your hands. Those expire after the season's over. That money's off the books, and they can kind of retool and reset. What I don't want to see is Kuminga or Wiggins involved in any of these trades because, like you, I mean, Kuminga has shown a ton of flashes as of late, and I'm not ready to give up on the experiment just yet. I may sound stupid saying that in a month or two, but with some more minutes, more than 30 minutes per game, he's averaging 20 points. He's shown that with minutes, he can score. Can he be a consistent defender? We will see. And then two-way Wiggs has just been too good this year on too nice of a contract to consider trading that contract unless it is the right opportunity. And some trades may require one of those two pieces. So it's smoke season. You ready for smoke season as the names have been brought up?
I'm so ready. This is always a fun time of year, but I think I want to annotate your Wiggins point.
Okay.
Certainly it's true that just talent-wise, there are trades that would require one of those guys. Perhaps more importantly, there is no avenue to a high-paid star player that does not include trading Andrew Wiggins, simply for contract reasons. There's not enough. I mean, unless you're talking about trading Draymond, which I'm not. I'm not going to engage in those conversations. But if you want, I mean, Jimmy Butler, as an example, and I know we'll get to him in a second, he makes $48 million. All right. Steph obviously makes more than that. But otherwise, on the Warriors, the next biggest contract is Andrew Wiggins at 26. Then it's Draymond at 24, and then we drop down into the teens. So you cannot really put together a package for Jimmy Butler or someone who makes more than $40 million that doesn't include Andrew Wiggins without literally everybody else. So that's not happening.
Well, here's the deal. You're wrong. You're 100% wrong because Draymond Green, I mean, technically speaking, right?
Well, like I said, I'm not going to engage in trading Draymond conversations because I think it's really senseless. But it could be Draymond instead of Wiggins. Theoretically, financially, it could be.
Yeah. Saying that, it's just the right time to bring it up, considering they've been talking about untapping. I don't think that's what he meant when he said, like, I'll take a lesser role to help Kuminga's untapped potential. I think he meant more of I'll slide to the bench here and there to give Kuminga those spots at the 4 and see what he can do, and I'll play the 5 and sacrifice that way. I don't think he literally meant, yeah.
And I think Draymond realizes, like, I can give up a starting position now, and anytime I say, all right, I'm ready to start at center, they're going to give me that job. And beyond that, I think he understands that him at center is the Warriors' best lineup, but also that he has to be available for that to work. And I don't think there's much benefit to him playing 30 minutes of center a night starting now. So I think they are smartly holding that in reserve. And listen, we can talk, people can talk about Draymond trades, but he's just never going to be as valuable to anybody else as he is to the Warriors. Just in real terms, his relationship with Steph Curry, combined with all of the incredible things he does as a player, but specifically that relationship makes his value so much greater here than anywhere else that I would imagine Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green have similar trade value in terms of how close they get you to a star. And there's no reason you would choose to trade Draymond if they have similar value, right?
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. A lot of names to get to, man.
Okay, let's hear some of your names.
It'll take up a bulk of the show.
I'm excited.
Good stuff. I'm excited too. Unfortunately, it's going to have to wait just a few seconds.
A tease.
We're getting into the trades coming up. First up is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view the live play-by-play. You could do so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. You can find it all out on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sports betting partner of the NFL. As for the NBA, the Rockets and the Warriors in the NBA Cup quarterfinals, it's a TNT game. Rockets, who haven't beat the Warriors in the last 15 tries, they've struggled with Golden State. They're favorites right now. So if you think the Warriors are going to make that 16, you say Vegas, keep some of your points. It's at Houston -1.5 right now, meaning the Warriors are 1.5 point dogs to the Houston Rockets. Make that bet on FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Mint Mobile. I'll tell you about Mint Mobile, everyone. Big wireless providers, you never see what you get. Somewhere between the store and the first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, there's no gotchas. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month, when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. They're here to rescue you with those $15 plans. So join to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That is mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show, man. I am very excited for this because in the offseason, it was hypothetical season. During hypothetical season, the names that are thrown out are always so stupid. They're so dumb. They make no sense. Star after star. It's players that don't even help you win, but you got to entertain them because it's the middle of July. Now we are seeing tangible evidence that the Golden State Warriors are actually interested in some of these players. Let's start with names being brought up that I think we should not discuss for more than 30 seconds on this show because it should be realistic trades. No point in engaging in sensationalism. That to me is exactly what LeBron James is. And it picked up in recent weeks. Kawakami obviously noted this, that Golden State called about LeBron last February because the Lakers could use Klay Thompson and Chris Paul's expiring contracts to kind of reset after things went wrong on the books with the whole Russell Westbrook fiasco that went down. And by the way, mind you, Russell Westbrook's been good, man. He's been good in his role outside of Los Angeles. But it would be a completely different trade this year. I think we can both move on saying that LeBron James is not happening. There's just no way to make it happen.
I can't envision any way to make it happen.
Money does matter in this whole scenario. It's not take 4 first-round draft picks, Lakers, and we'll take on LeBron. It doesn't work that way anymore. So here's what we know thus far. Per Shams, the Brookyln Nets are receiving trade interest in Cam Johnson, in Dorian Finney-Smith, and guard Dennis Schroeder. Have opened exploratory conversations. Interested teams include the Golden State Warriors, who are interested in all 3 of those guys. All 3 of them. That's per Shams citing sources. Charania also reported that the Warriors looking to add a star player before the February 6th deadline. One potential fit, Miami Heat forward Jimmy Butler. Matt Kolsky's been asking about this one for a long time. Charania reported he's open to a trade to Golden State, as well as the Houston Rockets and the Dallas Mavericks. I'm going to start it right there and just say absolutely not with Jimmy Butler. It would require getting rid of Andrew Wiggins. That's what it would require. When you talk about how a big-time star package requires Wiggins, yeah, you bring in the $48 million and a 36-year-old Butler, who's a nice player. Is he better than Andrew Wiggins? Yeah, I think at this stage of his career, you could say he's better than Andrew Wiggins. But you say the gap is that wide that he's that much better than Andrew Wiggins to you.
When healthy, Jimmy Butler
$1 million better.
The money doesn't matter.
It does, though. It matters tremendously in a lot of these trades. Why does it matter? Because you have to match.
Yeah. So it's Wiggins, Melton, and Kyle Anderson. And a draft pick. I mean, if that's the price, and I think if you think about those other teams, it depends what they're willing to give up. The Rockets can obviously beat that offer if they're willing to give it up for Jimmy. But, there is risk with Jimmy Butler. He's had some injuries. Obviously, he would have way less on his shoulders here. Frankly, I think he's better at both ends of the floor than Andrew Wiggins, and that's not shade to Wiggins. Jimmy Butler is special. He is older. He is equally, if not slightly more injury prone. Again, there is risk. But if it doesn't include one of the young guys, I think I do it. If it's Wiggins, a draft pick, yeah, there you go.
Here's your trade. Per the ESPN trade machine, I was cooking things up all day. If you got rid of Wiggins, Melton, Payton, and Santos, and maybe Anderson works there as well. Have to look at the exact financials. But
Anderson's about 8. So he I think would work as a replacement for Payton and maybe Payton. And I don't think you need Guy. You don't need Guy Santos in there.
You need him in there. Yep. It wasn't you needed that extra 1.8 million just to get over the hump, or else you're capped. But so it's the 4 players for 1 type swap, and maybe you could get rid of Payton and put Anderson in there. The analysis says that the Warriors would not get any better making that trade. And
yeah, but all the analysis is going to be skewed with DeAnthony Melton in there because it's imagining him as someone who's helping your team. So, and it's 4 for 1, it's hard to make sense of that. But realistically speaking, that trade would be asking more of Moses Moody and Brandon Pajemski.
Yep.
And that's why I would probably put Anderson in there instead of Payton. But
they would take picks, though. They would need picks to make that deal. They're not looking at that exact deal, or else what makes sense for Miami? Because you only have
it would have to be Warriors first rounders
for 1 more year after it, and unless you love Wiggins to the point where you're like, we want this contract, man. We feel like it's a bargain. That would be the only way to where you can make that haul without throwing in a first rounder or 2.
Hold on. There's no way you're not throwing in at least 1 first rounder, right?
Okay.
I think whether you have to throw in 2 depends on what the other offers would be. And again, the Rockets can probably make an offer the Warriors can't beat under any circumstances. I don't know if Dallas can, but it would be future first rounders, at least 1, maybe 2 that you throw in there. And the Heat would have to believe that Andrew Wiggins can be a useful player for them, and that given more scoring opportunity, he could do more scoring, right? But Wiggins, to your point, has played quite well this year and has shown himself reasonably capable on both ends at various times in his career. They may be able to talk themselves into that if there aren't other great offers. I wouldn't put Kuminga in the deal because then, to me, you've given up too much to get, as you said, an old and just 1.5 years of Jimmy Butler.
That would be Pat and company trying to fleece you, right? If it then becomes Kuminga, Wiggins, and draft picks, that to me, too much.
I don't think I'd even put Pajemski in there, to be honest.
Really?
No.
We got fans of the show saying that you should send him down to Santa Cruz for an extended stay. Tell him to get some rent down there. And
I think that would be a better
Butler deal.
I think that would be a better idea than throwing him in a trade right now because his value couldn't be lower. And frankly, I still believe that's a good player,
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll ever be a guy that shoots 8 to 10 threes a game like they pretended he would be in the offseason. But I do think that is a guy who can grow into a significant role as a probably starter in the NBA. So that's not nothing. And he would be worth nothing right now.
Yeah, I'm getting above lukewarm on your desire to go out and get Jimmy Butler. I'm hearing from you, if you were GM, like let's explore it. I'd explore it, and it'd have to be the right deal, but I would definitely think about it per you.
And I'm talking to Jimmy too. I got to get a feel for where he's at, both physically and mentally. But if he's saying, listen, bring me in, I'll help as a number 2 or 3 scorer. I don't really care about that. I'll play well on the defensive end. And if you need somebody to go get you a bucket down the stretch in the playoffs, I can do that too.
He's physical, man. He would be a nice addition in that regard.
He changes the ceiling for the Warriors for me based on the level of trust you have in his ability to get a playoff bucket down the stretch. Right now, look, I love Jonathan Kuminga as much as just about anybody. The only guy on the Warriors roster that you can trust down the stretch to score in a playoff game right now is Steph Curry. And that is the biggest difference between Andrew Wiggins and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is that dude. Andrew Wiggins is like, he's had some moments, but you can't say he's that dude.
Yeah. So the Nets, could they be using the Warriors to draw more buyers?
Yes.
Yes. You don't hear it get out like this in the media, and then the trade usually happens. That's not usually something that happens. But they mentioned they were interested, the Warriors, in Dorian Finney-Smith, in Dennis Schroeder, also Cam Johnson. Just to give you a sense of trying to land, let's start with Cam and Dennis, because you can't land all three in one trade. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you'd love to have a clean – and why would you want it? I mean,
I don't think you want –
that's kind of stink.
I don't think you want Finney-Smith and Johnson, frankly.
No, they're similar players.
Similar. Yeah.
Let's go with Johnson and let's go with Schroeder. I cooked up a trade. I threw in Melton, I threw in Peyton, I threw in Pajemski, and I'm sure draft picks would be attached to it. Essentially, Cam Johnson's contract, the Nets would not mind getting rid of. They're not competitive right now. It's 3 years. It's at $22 million a year. They could use younger talent. They could use draft picks. That's one that they would not mind getting off the books for sure. So you throw them a young player like Pajemski and then 2 expiring deals in Melton and Peyton. They're saving money. You're giving them draft picks too. That would make sense. The only problem is because of the cap, the trade fails. How it could work is you add Jonathan Kuminga to that mix. You give away Melton, you give away Peyton, you give away Kuminga, you give away Moody. You got yourself Cam Johnson and Dennis Schroeder in return. Does that entice you?
Not even in the tiniest little bit. That would be an insane thing to do. Cam Johnson is a nice player who's probably at his ceiling. Dennis Schroeder is getting up there in years and on the last year of his contract. So that would be suicide. That is a suicidal trade that you've proposed that does not even make you a little better, I don't think. You know what trade interests me? Melton and a draft pick for Schroeder.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the salaries match.
Yep.
You'd have to throw in Santos. Santos is that 1.8 is surprisingly lucrative
useful
in this entire thing. Yeah.
I think Dennis Schroeder could help if the plan is to aggregate the minutes that Peyton and or Pajemski are getting for the most part and give them to someone who can really score the ball. I don't know if you'd start him at shooting guard. You'd probably stick with Pajemski as the starter, but most of Peyton's minutes, I mean, Schroeder's not a Peyton level defender, but he's pesky. And he can really score, and he's having a pretty good year. And he's frankly closer to a legitimate point guard than anybody on the roster right now.
Here's what I like about Dennis. If you consider him an ideal candidate, he could start next to Steph, right? He could play in that lineup next to Steph. He could kind of be
play next to him, yeah.
He could be what Pods is now. I mean,
yeah, I don't know
a better version of Pods.
A better scoring version. He's not going to do the other things. He's not going to rebound like Pods. He's a better ball handler though, and they could use some of that. You know, you're not going to give him all of Pods minutes, but you'd have to take a lot of Peyton minutes and a lot of Pods minutes and give him to Dennis Schroeder. And whether he's starting or coming off the bench, it's a scoring punch from the guard position that doesn't exist on the team now. It's essentially a Melton replacement. Are you willing to give up a draft pick for a Melton replacement? I don't know.
Does that put you over the top because you only have him for a year?
Does it put you over the top this year?
Does it put you over the top? If not, what are you doing? You plan to be fourth?
That's fair. So maybe if there is another smaller trade that nets you a
bigger trade,
right?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a scenario where that becomes useful as a secondary deal. I like Dennis Schroeder as a scorer and playmaker. I don't think he'd be a terrible fit with the Warriors, but you're probably right that if that's the only thing you're doing, it's kind of a waste.
We got the Houston Rockets coming up. We're going to talk about that. First, let's kind of run through the numbers because Cam Johnson's averaging 18 points, 4 rebounds, shooting 48% from the field and 43.5% from three. That is with size.
Here's the thing with Cam Johnson. He would be useful, but his best position is probably a small ball 4. So
logjam.
It's not the best fit positionally. So I'd say the same thing with Finney-Smith. He's a wonderful defender, and he's capable of knocking down a three. But
it would be a secondary trade. It would be if they go out and get that star using Kuminga as the bait and then bringing him in. That's kind of if there's multiple trades,
right.
and we don't really know the Warriors to make multiple trades. We're just
you never know.
one,
but you're right that if Wiggins or Kuminga went out the door in a trade, then Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith would make a lot of sense as like a lower ceiling replacement for that spot.
Yeah, Finney-Smith averaging 10 points per game, 43% from three-point range. So both good shooters. And Schroeder on the season, he's been great. 18 points, 6.5 assists, and shoots it pretty robust, 38.5% from distance. So we'll see if the Brookyln Nets is the way to go. If it's just smoke, it is smoke season after all. Or, could they go after the Jimmy Butlers of the world or LeBron James? I don't even know.
I still like your Myles Turner idea, Chuck. I still think that's the best idea I've heard.
That's a tease. We're getting into GM Chuck Walter coming up. Myles Turner, how's it feasible? That's a tease. We're discussing it on Locked On Ducks. First off, I got to tell you about one of my favorite apps. It is the Game Time app. Best part about it, closer you get to your event, the cheaper the tickets get. So if you're waiting until the last second, or if you get a last second buddy that says, hey, let's go to the game tonight, your tickets are going to be cheaper. You also get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you're sitting, and you have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will cover you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Kolsky?
Game time. Whew.
Got it this time. It is Game Time. Getting into some Houston Rockets talk in a minute, but as of right now, it takes the back seat to smoke season. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of today's show, because the floodgates have now been opened as players are reporting that they wouldn't mind playing elsewhere. Jimmy Butler, a Golden State Warrior, I wouldn't mind it, he says. Or the Houston Rockets or Dallas Mavericks, he throws into that mix. And then the Brookyln Nets have been in contact with the Golden State Warriors about the Warriors' interest in 3 of their players. That was what we had just discussed. One that hasn't been a discussion, at least this year, I know it's been brought up in the past, is a name that I brought up, because we talk about how you can unlock these lineups. Here's the issue with all this, is even if these trades are made, Kolsky, if Kuminga's best at the 4, Myles Turner doesn't do anything to help you get on the floor at the 4. It helps him get on the floor with Wiggins as the 2, Kuminga at the 3, Draymond at the 4, or just more depth in general to where when Draymond hits the bench, you can bring in Turner, whatever it may be.
Wait, what you're missing is the reason Steve Kerr doesn't believe Jonathan Kuminga works at the 4, or works at the 3 rather, is because usually that means he is playing with 2 non-shooting bigs, and it's not enough spacing for him to do what he does best, just attack the basket.
Oh.
So I would argue, and who knows if Steve Kerr agrees, but I would argue that having a shooting center would allow you to play Draymond at the 4, Kuminga at the 3, and whatever 2 you want next to Steph Curry, because it would give you the same floor spacing as you have when it's Kuminga, Draymond at the 4-5 and a shooter at the 2.
Here's the thing with Myles Turner. Pacers obviously have to be willing to get rid of him, or it's not going to happen, right? Unless he demands out. He has 1 year left on his deal. And by 1 year left on his deal, I mean this is it for Myles Turner before you have to extend him. So that's important.
That's why they would want to get rid of him theoretically.
It's important in this entire thing. Yeah, they're not going anywhere, it looks. They weren't great at one point last year, aside from that run they had in the Cup. And then next thing you know, you see them in the Eastern Conference Finals. So there's season left. And if they want to salvage any part of the season, they need him, because Jimmy Wise, he's gone. One of their other bigs hurt for the season. So, I mean, they're depleted right now at that position. The thing is, in my hypothetical trade, you give them their big. It's Trace Jackson Davis. You throw in You throw in Pajemski, or you don't. You find, Peyton's money, or give him someone else. And then DeAnthony Melton, Guy Santos, those are the 4 players you'd be trading for Myles Turner. I'm sure you'd have to throw a pick in there unless they're very high on Pajemski and Trace. And they're like, hey, we'll take 3 years of cheap Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis to, struggle the rest of this year. You guys can have Myles Turner for a little addition. It makes sense for both parties if Indiana is willing to get rid of him, because Myles Turner, it fits. His skill set fits right now. Whether it's 25 minutes a night, whether it's 35 minutes a night, it's something the Warriors don't have that they could use.
I don't think the Warriors would put Pajemski in that deal. I think they'd
did it to beat the trade machine. The
end of that sentence is you could easily replace him with Moody or, whoever, or a couple of guys with Peyton. You can make the money work. And I fully agree with you. I think Trace has shown a lot of potential. He's an Indiana kid. His dad played for the team, right? Could be nice. Lob threat with Halliburton. Come on, guys. He's on a better age timeline with the talent on that Indiana team. Time to start building together. Turner's going to be gone next year anyway. Again, it would depend on if they put Myles Turner on the market. Can they get somebody to offer them something better? But I think, expiring contracts, a young center, and, if you had to throw Moody or Pajemski in there, another young player with some potential, that might be enough,
Yeah, and if you get rid of Pajemski, let's say, that's where you can do exactly what we said. You go out and you get Turner on one hand by using expiring contracts, using Trace as one of your chips, and then somehow you keep a draft pick, let's say, if they were able to, throw in a second or just one first. Then you could go out with Brookyln. You could use another first, and you could bring in Schroeder. Now we're going for it all this year because they both need extensions, right? It would be the roster as much as possible. Would that get them over the top?
It certainly gets them close. Now, I would say this. It certainly makes them more intriguing. And I would say
lose a lot of draft capital.
Yeah, but I would say that argument I just made to tell you why Myles Turner would help the fit with Jonathan Kuminga won't stop being true at the end of the year. And he might be, what is he, 28? He's not old.
No.
He could be a good candidate to extend and stay. And all of a sudden, you've got a
squad.
Well, you've got a big a shooting center, and then you've still got Looney, right?
Yeah.
If you need to go bang someone's ass down there,
a little fire and ice. Yeah. A little Braun and
think
finesse.
I have thought about it a lot since you brought it up, and I really think Myles Turner is a great fit for this team. I don't know. He's not a superstar, obviously. I don't know if he puts you over the top, but boy, he does so many of the things you need and gives you something you've never really had at that position. There's sort of a new toy effect to that, right? He can still do the things that guys like JaVale McGee or whoever have done with the finishing on offense, but he can also shoot, and he plays D. I like the idea of it a lot, and if you can do it and still have enough left, and look, again, Kyle Anderson becomes kind of expendable and is also, I believe, an expiring contract if you do add another big, right? So, boy, if you can bring in Myles Turner and a Schroeder type without giving up Kuminga or Wiggins,
we're talking.
I think we are talking.
We're talking, Kolsky. We were supposed to be talking about the Houston Rockets. We ran out of time. The good news, man, is we have an entire episode with Jackson Gatlin of Locked On Warriors that should be debuting 10 hours after you listen to this. So just hop back on the Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google app, wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, and that entire conversation will be there so you can hear more about the Rockets as a whole.
Lock in.
Excuse me. And that Rockets matchup. Let's finish by telling you about our newsletter. It's delivered to your inbox. It's free. It's daily. It's at lockedondaily.com. You you can subscribe to that free newsletter. It's got all the Warriors content you need and gives you some news, notes, and nuggets from around the NBA. He's Matt Kolsky. I'm Charlie Walter. What will the Warriors do as smoke season has begun? February is the deadline. February 6th is that date, everyone. Locked on Warriors. See ya.